After 50 years under the rule of the Assad family, Syria is now in a state of real uncertainty. And the question is, who will be the winners, who will be the losers, and who may put themselves on one side or another to try to take advantage of this current situation. The first most obvious loser is Russia. The Russians have supported Bashar al Assad since 2015. They saved him from almost certain collapse in that year, and they've put a lot of money and effort and political will behind him. And they obviously decided about a week ago that it was impossible to save him. They tried to intervene with air power against the forces that were converging towards Damascus, and that obviously didn't work. And then they pulled out. Of course, it's not irrelevant that all of this has happened while Russia is preoccupied with Ukraine. HTS, the force that have removed Assad with this lightning advance from Idlib to Aleppo and then right through to Damascus, they obviously calculated that this was a good moment to attack because the Russians would be hampered in the support they could offer Syria, and that turned out to be true. The Russians are overstretched because of what they're trying to do in Ukraine. They've got two military bases, one at Latakia, an air base, and a naval base at Tartus, and it looks as if they're pulling equipment out of those bases, probably to take it away by sea. So they must anticipate that they will lose both of those bases, and they were important because Tartus is Russia's only Mediterranean naval base, and Latakia was the only air base that was the jumping off point for flights to and from Africa, where the Russians have got very big interest now in the Sahel region. So losing both of those bases, it's not a total disaster, but it's a complicating factor for the Russian military for the future. And beyond that, of course, the Russians have suffered a huge prestige blow in showing that even with their support, Assad could not survive, which may be a lesson to other clients that they also support around the world. The second greatest loser is Iran. The Iranians were also supporting Assad. Influence in Syria, supporting Assad was their way of keeping open a ground route into Lebanon, where Hezbollah, their main client, was based and operating, and a route towards attacking Israel, where they wanted to set up attacks on Israel. So losing Syria and being thrown out of Syria, which is what will happen now, is a big strategic loss for Iran, and that comes at a time when the Iranians are on the back foot because of everything that's happened in the Gaza war. Hamas is being dismantled, Hezbollah is very much on the back foot. These were both clients, particularly Hezbollah. And now to lose Assad, the Iranians have now lost 3 of their regional clients, the axis of resistance, as they called it, and Iran must now be thinking what to do next. The big problem, of course, is that Iran may now, as a result of these setbacks, decide to really push for a nuclear test and to develop the nuclear weapon that they're now very close to being able to have. These events may tip their decision-making in favor of going nuclear sooner rather than later. One of the 2 big winners from this crisis is Israel, and this collapse in Syria, although it will create chaos, also creates lots of opportunities for Israel, not just to further push back Hezbollah, but to attack Iranian influence in Syria, which was always one of their problems. And it's very relevant, I think, that within 24 hours or so of the collapse of Damascus, the Israelis had moved out of the Golan Heights and moved into a buffer zone inside Syria. So in a marginal sense, they've already invaded a little bit of Syria on the basis, says Israel Katz, the defense minister in Israel, he said that they have taken a temporary buffer zone to prevent terrorists moving into it. Well, it may turn out to be less than temporary, but there they are. The Israelis are now inside Syria, on the Syrian side of the border, and the Israelis are very keen to diminish even further Iran's influence across the region. The other obvious winner, short-term winner from this crisis, is Turkey. The HTS attack has been so successful that now Turkey sees some opportunities. And the opportunities that Turkey has is to consolidate its control over parts of northern Syria and to attack even more vigorously the Kurdish terrorists that it worries about, the PKK, and to make the most of the chaos in northern Syria to further its own regional agenda, which basically means diminishing the power of the Kurds, increasing the buffer zone that Turkey wants, and to do something about refugees. Turkey really hopes that some of the 2 million or so Syrian refugees on the Turkish side of the border will now decide to go home and relieve some of the pressure that they are under. Whether the United States is a winner or a loser from this will emerge over time. In the immediate aftermath of the collapse of the Assad regime in Damascus, the United States has taken the opportunity to bomb several targets, about 75 targets in the last 24 hours, of ISIS, on the argument that they do not want ISIS to be able to take advantage of the chaos in Syria. And there's some truth in that, but there's also the case that the United States finds it convenient now to launch a very widespread bombing raid. Instead of bombing one or two places, they've bombed 70-odd facilities to really hurt ISIS and put them on the back foot at a time when the future is uncertain. Whether the US will stay involved in Syrian politics, it has a base at Al-Tanf, to have about 900 troops there. Whether they'll stay there or not is an open question, because President-elect Trump has said that he will withdraw all troops from Syria. So maybe they won't still be there come the end of January or February, but maybe they will. We will see. Whether the 25 million people in Syria will win or lose from this is still an open question. A more free Syria with greater tolerance for all of its different ethnic and religious groups is certainly possible. But equally possible is a government that starts with all sorts of liberal sounding intentions and ends up like a Taliban government. The one thing that Syria is not likely to be in the future is a Western style democracy, because as a group of political Islam, HTS doesn't believe in democracy. And so Syria will not in the short term be democratic, but it might turn into a better place than it has been for the last 50 years.